Welcome back to Peterson Auto. Today we have a 2.5 flat 4-cylinder Subaru. We're going to be doing the basic head gasket job on it here. It's one of those things, honestly, it ain't hard. It doesn't require many special tools, or any special tools in most cases. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and go through it and show you how to do this, since kind of like routine maintenance on these, honestly. I'm not a big fan of them because of that, but I do own one, and this is a friend's car, so he bought it. They are great all-wheel drive cars. So first thing we're going to have to start with is taking the intake box out. I already got this part loose. There's a screw here, a screw here, screw back there. You come over to the actual intake box, there's one there, and I think there's one or two in the back of the box. And then you have the hose clamp, and then your whole intake tract is out. You're going to continue by tearing off the top of the motor, which has a whole bunch of wiring and sensors on it we'll have to deal with here, and I'll give you a run through of that. But right now I'm going to get this intake box off. Alright, now if I recall, the intake comes off of these fairly easily. As you can look, there's not much air after you actually take the intake box off. Your transmission starts about here. So we have this hose here. We have our coils and plugs. We have a bracket here and a bracket here. And some wiring, and that's basically it for the intake. So the intake ain't much. We're going to try to leave as much of the front accessories on as possible, but we are going to have to pull a good bit of them off to get to the timing kit, which is going to be down in here in the front. So yeah, we're going to start pulling things apart, disconnect all the wiring. Last time I checked on these, the wiring is all idiot proof to, one plug only goes to this location, so you can't really mess that up. But we are going to have to pull almost all the wiring off to the side. The AC compressor right here will eventually be pulled off and put off to the side, so we don't have to drain the system. We can set that right up here on the windshield washer tank, which you can't see, it's just out of frame. And here's your battery, by the way. At some point you want to go ahead and disconnect that. By all means, that's a very good idea. So I'm going to do that too here soon. Alright YouTube, these have one of the weirdest belt tensioner setups on it here. This is your AC tensioner. You gotta loosen that nut, just loosen it, don't take it off, and loosen this bolt and it'll pull it up. And over here, you gotta loosen this nut, which is actually hidden right up in here. And then loosen this bolt and then you can pull it off. So, you just saw me do that. Ugh, a little crunchy. Might want to talk to the owner about an alternator on this one. Checking everything here while we can, that's fine. Power steering has some play. So, may or may not be worth looking into the power steering play and the alternator crunch. This thing did sit all winter though, so. And I'll talk to the owner, see what he wants to do. If he wants to put more money into it or not. But AC compressor looks good. So we're going to keep taking it apart and go from there. So I'm going to pull the rest of this off just to get the front end taken down a little more. Unfortunately, we're going to have to take most of the accessories off right now to leave access for the intake there. So that's our next step. Alright, so we got the harmonic balancer here. I noticed it's coming into the timing case, so it is shot. We're going to go ahead and try to remove that right now. Alright YouTube, if you look down here you can see I have a short 3/8 socket and an extension. I could have probably went with the extension that came out to about here, about half the size of what I have. So maybe about a 3" would be perfect. Wobble extension would probably help. It's a little tight to get that bottom AC compressor bolt out. Not too tight, but a little tight. You can see my ordeal I got going on. Alright YouTube, today I learned a little something. Apparently there's a brown gray plug and they're held right in here with a bolt. Right behind what looks to be crankcase ventilation tube. Yeah, so those are held in there with a bracket on a bolt on the other end of the harness. So if you take you don't need to pull anything wiring wise off the intake. You do need to disconnect all the alternator wiring that was set aside over here. Your AC compressor wiring is included in that. I would disconnect this crankcase ventilation hose from down here if you can. I was having trouble getting to that without pulling a washer reservoir. However, in hindsight, which is never blind, that may be the easier way to go. The sensor for the power steering pump. This sensor, which I assume is coolant temp. This is a crank. And there's a cam sensor here that need to be disconnected. You have a knock sensor back under the intake manifold. You have your two coolant hoses here. Booster hose. Fuel lines. And you can pull the intake off as a whole assembly. For me, that was a bit challenging because I had not done one of these before. And I was figuring out as I was going. Because, you know, why not? Let you guys get the experience. Either way, figuring out wasn't hard, as you saw. But we are going to go ahead and take the power steering pump off and lay that aside just to give us better access to the front of the engine. And we're going to take that whole bracket off for the tensioner. And it can all go back together then at some point. But we're going to get those off. And then that's going to be disassembly of the top end of this. Honestly, after that, it's I have to drain the coolant and the oil, but you guys should have already done that. Exhaust manifold's off, and we get on the timing kit coming off in the heads. So it's not really that hard to do these.
My car. Nope. Oh, no, that's not my car.
Alright, quiet guys. Okay, so we put our socket on there. I think it's a 22 millimeter or 7/8. And you see where the pry bar is back there into the flex plate. Lighting's kind of poor. But just wedged the pry bar in this flex plate and broke it loose that way to get the balancer off. So
go inside the house. I won't try myself.
and there's our balancer. So as you can see, this one is shot. The rubber's separated. Yeah, very, very bad. Now to get this off for the timing cover, it's a bunch of 10 millimeter bolts, nice and easy. Pardon the talkative children. Alright, YouTube, after you have the balancer pulled and the timing covers off, you can see what we got here. We got a tensioner here. Here's your water pump. We'll be replacing two idler pulleys and a gear drive pulley. I don't know if it's an oil pump or something yet. I'm not sure. I used the crank bolt, put it in there, turned it over by hand to where the time marks lined up. Use the impact to get that out. You can see you got a timing mark right here, which is really hard to see. It's just a little slash. That lines up with that groove. Over here, I have a timing mark here. That lines up with this line here. They're a little bit to the right. That's what YouTube's saying makes this work out, and I'm gonna believe YouTube for this. And Google, actually. I didn't YouTube it. That's why I'm YouTubing it. Because these are a little harder to find decent tutorials on. So that's why I'm YouTubing it. But we also have a square here. And that's going to line up here. So it looks like one tab on either side of this bump out is what you're looking for. That's your crank trigger, crank sensor here. Right there. Looking for one tab on either side of that bump out from the looks of it. And after that we can pull the belt off. Now, easy way to just disassemble would be to go ahead and take this off here, and it all comes out, but you might want to detension the tensioner. It is a hydraulic tensioner from the looks of it, and you'll probably need some kind of pry bar to do that, to go down in here and pry up to compress that little piston piece there. So we will continue with that part tomorrow. I think I'm going to call it a day for now. Alright, so we left off here. This coolant pipe needs to come out. Over in here, it connects to a heater hose. That's just a simple hose clamp. And then there's 4 bolts on it, and we can pull that coolant pipe out. So that's what we're going to do right now. Let me see here.
Daddy, I poop. Oh, poop.
Get a better view. Okay, so this bottom cogged one can come out first on these.
Yeah.
You don't want to deal with the tensioner.
Yeah, on the other parts. Yeah, for the other parts. Because the other parts are a little harder.
You're right, the other parts are a little harder. Mostly because this bottom cogged one
It's a little...
has the least amount of tension on it.
Yeah, and we need to like do it and...
Actually, this one has the least amount of tension in it, yeah. My mistake.
Yeah, guys, but are we going to do that back up? Yeah, some of them are a little hard, and some of them are not a little hard. Right, guys, some of them are not a little hard, some of them are hard.
Yep, so this one here
It's a hard.
is an easy one.
Yeah,
that has the least tension on it.
Yeah,
then you take off that
That's a hard one.
spline one.
It's a spline. And this car is a little old, right, Daddy?
It's 2000. It's older than you.
Almost older. But Daddy, why are all these screws are almost out?
There's other things attached there that I took apart. I put them back in so we don't lose them.
And me and Daddy are going to work on the car today.
Yep, we are. So at this point, we could probably slide it off, actually.
And we're going to slide it off.
But we're just going to take this one out the rest of the way.
And we're going to take it out the rest of the way. And we're going to put it right there. And it don't roll away. Just in case, right, Daddy?
Yep.
Just in case. And we're going to take that off, too.
And take the timing belt off.
Yeah, we're going to put it right
Now, at
there.
this point, we got a water pump down in here. We got our tensioner and another idler, so we're going to remove this other idler.
Yeah.
Because
it's a little harder.
Because our kit should have another idler in it.
Yeah, and it's a little hard. Right, Daddy?
Yeah, that bolt was tight.
Yeah, it was a little tight. It was a little too tight. Hey, you're watching this video? Give it a thumbs up.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe for this video.
So I said subscribe to the video so we can fix more cars together.
Yeah. Yep, more cars today. Yeah, maybe more cars. Because me and Daddy like helping.
You like helping Daddy, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a couple kind of hidden bolts here. One's down here and one's up here. If you reference the new part, it'll be easy to find them. And I still have a hose on there, I think. I don't know if I took that off on the other end. So I found the bubble wrap. And I'll probably wind up pulling that head before I pull that the rest of the way off, just because that's going to be a little easier doing it that way. So, because it's a little seized in there. If we weren't doing the heads, we could pull that off without really too many issues. But we're doing the heads. We'll make our job easier. We're going to start on this one. He's going to try to get these.
I don't think that's how much it costs.
Every single Thursday, bud.
No, it comes up here sometimes, too.
Uh-huh. Per side, we're only going to show you this side for the lower valve cover and the manifold from under here. I'm going to do the other side then. But, yeah, it's 3 bolts per header, manifold, whatever you want to call it there. And then you got your 2 lower valve cover bolts. That'll be easier to do while we have everything under here on both sides. So, not going to show you the other side, we're just going to do it. Alright, now we need to take the valve cover off. Pretty sure I got all the bolts. I think there's 5 per side, 2 top, 2 bottom. We're just going to go in here and give it all a pry.
Mary!
And there we go.
Mary! Daddy, Mary's done. Mary!
I told you to be quiet. What do you want? Turning the water on would have helped.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was on. It felt like it was.
No, I just had it on. So if you get here, pry. You can pull the valve cover right off. Then we can pull the gasket off. If you're working in a Now this doesn't have signs of your typical head gasket failure. Your typical head gasket failure on these is going to be where you have coolant and oil joining together. Now this, we don't have that because there would be a milky, snotty substance in the oil passages there, especially here in the valve covers. So this one actually was showing, for these at least, some typically weird symptoms of a head gasket, which includes overheating and a pressurized coolant system, which is going to be a telltale sign of a blow between the combustion chamber and the coolant passage. So this one did not have the typical Subaru head gasket issues, but it had other head gasket issues. So just because it's not your typical issue doesn't mean it still can't happen. Based on how clean this thing is and how everything's coming apart easily, I'm willing to bet someone had this apart before to do some kind of gaskets on it, and we'll take a look at the head gaskets depending if they come out in one piece or not, and see if there's anything suspicious there. Oil looks very clean. Oil galleys look very clean. Fortunately, this car was bought, driven around for maybe a week, and then first time the guy drove it any distance, he discovered this overheating issue. So I suspect someone tried to replace them and unfortunately failed. But we shall see, we shall see. Alright, so the back bottom bolt there was a bit of a pain. It'll be fine if you do that one first and the head's still in place. I had the head weight holding on the bolt, and it didn't stay on the dowel pins too well due to the design of the engine. So do the hardest access bolts and leave the easiest access for last.
And I was under there.
So I was under there helping. Yeah, he was. He was holding up the head for me so I could get the bolt out.
And I got dirty.
So now we're going to pull the head.
And I got oil in my eye.
Oh,
Right there, I got oil in my eye.
you didn't get oil in your eye. You got oil near your eye.
Near my eye. See? Look at me.
I forgot I screwed this one back in a little bit to help hold it, and could have tightened it down the whole way and got the other one out, but I had a helper. Alright, there we go. So we make sure
Get more dirt.
all the head bolts are basically out as far as they're going to go. We're going to jiggle it loose and pull it out.
I got dirt and I got oil right by my eye. Let me show you.
Something tells me that may be part of our culprit. That looks like, I think, an oil passage. And there's a coolant
those
passage.
Those almost look like eyeballs.
Yeah. But
But Daddy, can I show them?
see, the coolant passage was blown out here. Potentially. There's still remainder of gasket material
Daddy, your
along there.
camera's almost dead. It's at 2%.
Yeah. 2 bars.
2 bars.
So we gotta change the battery soon. But
The movie will be almost over.
see, right here where all the oil comes out. Can't really say for sure, but that gasket looked kind of nasty there.
And Cyber's got oil on his eye. By his eye.
Yes, no, quiet. Daddy's trying to explain to him what's going on. What part's this? Head gasket.
I guessed.
But right in here is a
Yeah. Those are like.
potential issue due to the matching
like,
gasket being...
Yeah, it's you.
Someone wants to talk louder. The matching gasket being missing here makes that a potential issue for something going on, but the combustion areas are looking fine on that still. So I'm guessing it wasn't this gasket. We'll probably find the actual culprit on the other side. We're going to take some towels and clean up the dirt in here.
And clean up.
Looks like the crosshatch is still there in the cylinders, you can see, so you know, I wouldn't recommend a full rebuild at this point. I'd recommend just putting it back together. But we're going to clean up inside the cylinders there, and we're going to hit this with a whizzer wheel to get all the old gasket material off before we put the new one in. Have our exhaust gasket here we can take away. That's should be in the gasket kit. And
Put the sponge down. Put it down. He just took dirt from the tire and put it all over the side of the car.
That's Hayden.
okay. And then we're going to go ahead and just clean it up. I'm going to get a cleaner towel for that. But when we come back to put the head on, it'll be clean. What part's this? Cylinder head.
Cylinder head. And here's my fingers.
Then we got our valves.
Valves.
They all look pretty good. We don't see any cracks, chips, dents.
Yeah, and I was under there and I got messy.
Yep, this is the part Si held up when he got messy. Again, same oily residue there. It looks like that may have been leaking.
Yeah, it's a little leaky.
And other than that, this looks pretty good. Looks like everything was sealing pretty decently.
Yeah.
I don't see any major signs of coolant getting into the combustion chamber. So again, like the other side, we're going to clean it up with the whiz wheel and put it back together. We also have to worry about the intake up here. The valves, just need to make sure there's no real dirt in them. And we have our exhaust down here, which we'll clean up too. So after we get all the cleanup done, which is pretty boring, we'll start putting one side back together for you. One final tip though is if the bolts aren't clearing, you can loosen the motor mounts and actually push the engine to the right or to the left to you know, compensate and allow that to clear. Saw me struggling with that 14mm 12-point deep socket. A 14mm 12-point shallow socket would have done much better in that case. I just couldn't find one offhand. I know I have it, don't know where it went.
Daddy, it's almost dead.
Yep. Okay, so we got the head all cleaned up here. At least the mating surfaces that matter at this time. There is a gasket right in here. This one's not leaking. I'm not touching it. So, but just to consider, there is one there. Have to take the cams off and everything, unfortunately, but if that is leaking, you may want to deal with it. This one is not leaking, so we're not dealing with it. That's one that rarely goes, honestly, on these. So I will clean up the valve train a little better once I get it in the car. But you can see all the mating surfaces are cleaned up, ready for new gaskets, and head bolts. 2 different diameter washers. Kind of hard to see, actually. So the bigger diameters go in the center. Smaller ones go on the outside. You can see how that one's just a tad bit bigger. It's like a 23.6 and like 24 point. It's like a 2mm, if that, difference in diameter. You gotta look carefully, but bigger ones go in the center. The bigger ones will not fit in the side properly. Alright, so I have the head bolts in and the new gasket on the head, and we're going to put it in an assembly like this. You can kind of put it in at an angle and turn it into place. It's a little challenging. Like I said, if you want more access, you can always undo the engine mounts and move the engine over. However, we're going to do it this way. These are the MLS steel gaskets. You can see they are multiple layers of steel with like a Teflon coating. So you don't really want to scratch that coating, because that's really what's doing your sealing there, and crushing the metal together does it too. But these are the good ones. They are the ones that are most commonly recommended for, you know, the first time you do head gaskets. Unfortunately, that wasn't what was on before. It's a single layer steel. And we're going to go ahead and get this head in.